Hi, good evening. If you guys can hear me, please raise your hand. There's a little button. Yes, okay, I see you guys know what I'm talking about. Okay, great, great, great. So it's 6 o'clock exactly on my computer. We're going to wait about a minute or two before we get officially started with today's topic. My name's Monica Hasso. Most of you I know or I have communicated with you via email. So thank you for joining us for tonight's topic, which is money management. We call it Money Management 215. It's part of a series that we do on money management for troops. This one is in particular for how to do your end of year reporting. So keep in mind as we wait for others to log in that you have an option of writing in questions through your dialog bar that you should have. Usually comes up on the right hand of your screen. There'll be a box that you can ask questions. There's also a chat option where you can chat with the group completely. I'm going to ask that you make sure you're on mute if you're not, just to minimize the background noise. Okay, so it looks like we're getting more people logging in, but I will go ahead and get started. I'm going to clear everybody that raised their hand. So just so you know, on the go-to software that we have, when you raise your hand, that indicates to the presenter that you have a question that you want to ask. So we usually don't use that feature for the webinar because we want to keep it to the time frame that's, an hour or less. So we ask that you write in your questions through the question bar. And what I will do is pause a couple times throughout the session and read the questions and answer them that way. And it just makes it a little easier. So, all right, so let's go ahead and get started. So as I mentioned, my name is Monica Hasso. I'm the Volunteer Services Manager for our council. I do a lot of trainings or oversee trainings, and once in a while, I am happy to be able to do online training such as this one. So we will be talking about how to complete your end of year troop report. So let me get started. The whole point of the session is to ask the questions, what is the report, why do we need it, and how do we complete it? I will be going into detail as much as I can. So just to rehash, a troop is any group of girls that is one grade level only. So if you have only daisies, for example, that's a troop. If you have girls of different grade levels, let's say you have some daisies, some brownies, some juniors, then we usually refer to that as a group or a multi-level troop. They're used interchangeably. All that we're going to talk about today can be used with either or. And this is also helpful for service units that are completing their reports as well. That's our objective for today. And as always, we have our volunteer policy manual that I will be referencing a lot today. A lot of what I have to say will come out of here. And then we have our volunteer essentials, which is a reference from GSUSA. Just so you know, they have a whole chapter on managing troop finances. It's not going to go in detail on completing the report like we will tonight, but it does have really good advice on general troop money management. So I highly encourage you not to forget that those are there, and they're on our website, available anytime. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of all the details, I wanted to rehash some sound troop financial management. This is something we repeat whenever we discuss this topic, and it's the 2 keys to sound troop financial management, and that is transparency and communication. These are critical for anything having to do with finances, particularly in Girl Scouting. So when we talk about transparency, we mean always keeping your girls and your parents informed of all the money that's coming into the troop, that's being expensed. Transparency means being proactive, of informing everybody about the finances before they ask. and in making it easy for parents to approach you with any questions on the finances. It also will help you in communicating, which is the other key. We want to always involve the girls and parents when making financial decision making for the troop. Remember, the money belongs to the troop. Failure to communicate with girls and parents about finances usually creates an air of suspicion, and creates a red flag for counsel when there probably is no reason for it. So it's really important to communicate and always be in communication with counsel. Of course, we are here if you have any questions at all. Another key to sound financial money management comes from our volunteer policies, and I just want to read it verbatim. It says troop group funds are solely for the benefit of the girls within the troop group, with input from the girls into its use. So what we mean by that is to not forget the girls. Let's just always make sure that the girls are involved at the level that they can be, depending on their grade level. So daisies, of course, won't be able to be as involved as our older girls, but it's still important to remember that it's all about them. The money belongs to the troop, not signers on the bank account, not the adult volunteers, not the parents, and definitely not the individual girls. And then last sound financial management tip I'm gonna go over now is this one that's in our policy manual, and it's personal use of troop group funds at any time is illegal. Personal funds and troop group funds cannot be commingled, and that's something that we just like to repeat over and over and make sure that we're upholding the integrity of the troop financials. And remember, it's all about the girls, as I mentioned earlier. We want to get them involved at whatever level. Girl Scouting is about a lot of things and building leadership. At the core, it's all about the girls. We want to teach them financial literacy, decision making, and sustainability. That's a really key concept. I'm going to make sure that the finances are as girl-led as possible. Older girls, for example, can definitely help or at least be aware of these end of year financial reports that we're going to talk about. You'd be surprised. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the year-end reporting that is the topic for tonight. So what is it? So in our policies, it states that a service unit, troop, or group must submit a year-end troop group financial report by the fourth Thursday in June, or as soon as possible if troop leadership changes. A couple things about that. This is what we require as a council. Now, depending on where you're from, what service unit you belong to, they may ask for your reporting earlier, and they can definitely do that. They have to go through their review and auditing process as well before they turn it into council. I even know of some service units that required them back in May to give them enough time to go through it all before turning into council. And I also know of a service unit that requires a midpoint financial report, usually in December, just to ensure that all the troops are tracking and itemizing as they should, as opposed to, waiting until we get it all done at the last minute, which is this month. So just a couple notes there. So it is due the fourth Thursday in June. I realize that this webinar may be a little late. I wish I would have thought of it earlier. We are planning to do some changes to some of the forms for next year. So I may redo this webinar early next year or put it on a rotation or our website with that new information. I tried to be as general but yet detailed as possible tonight. Keep in mind that failure to submit the required financial report can or will result in a financial audit and possible release from his or her volunteer position to the council. We do have an internal process that we follow when financials are not turned in. It's tiered or staggered in timeline. So you're aware, we want to make sure and get those turned in by the deadline. All right, so what does that mean? What do we need to include in the report? So I tried to make it pretty simple here. Don't want to confuse or overwhelm. So basically what the year-end troop financial report includes are these four pieces that you see on your screen. It includes a report, which I'm going to go over with you. It includes a ledger, which I will show you. It also includes all of your bank statements. So every single month that your troop had that bank account, we need to see a bank statement for each month. And also all of your receipts for all the transactions that you incurred for this membership year. And so that you know, you'll see this later on as well, but I don't think I can repeat it enough. According to our volunteer policies, we are requiring that you keep records for 3 years. So if you're a troop leader, you will need to keep records of what you turn in and your financials for 3 calendar years. Always, always, with anything, not just the financial report, make sure that you keep copies for yourself, of course. I see a question. Let's see, what if the receipts are from council events and we never receive them? Oh, that's a great question. So that does happen. It does happen, and I'm surprised I don't get the question more often. So if you participated in council events and you paid council but never received a receipt, you can always request it. So we usually will have a record of all of our troops, and we can look up your receipts pretty easily. So all that you need to do is call the front desk and ask them, give them a date, as much specifics as you can, and they will be glad to print that out or send that information to you. That's a great question. So let me know if that helped out. I have more questions. Our bank statements go to council. Do I still need to print out the statements? Okay. That's interesting. So we recommend strongly that bank statements go to the troop leadership. And I don't want to get too much into those details, but we do recommend a check and balance system where you have different volunteers of the troop receiving or holding on to different things. So one person perhaps would receive the bank statements in the mail. Another person would maybe hold on to the checkbook. And another third would hold on to the debit card. So there probably are still some troops that have their statements go to council. We should change that so it goes to the adult volunteer in the troop that you designate. If that's a problem or an issue, just feel free and get a hold of me or your membership manager, and we can work through that. But that is the best practice. It doesn't do us any good to have it here because you're the one that needs to be reconciling your records, ideally on a monthly basis. Okay. All right, so let me keep going, and feel free and keep asking questions. I have it right in front of me. All right, document retention is the next slide. So that's what I was mentioning earlier. So you are aware financial records must be retained by your troop for 3 years. And I will go into where our documents are now. So all of you should be familiar with our website, right? www.gsdsw.org. All of our forms, not just the financial forms, are available if you click forms here. You can always use the search bar, which I have an example here. You can do a search for it and see what comes up. I tried to show you a different way of looking for things here. In case you weren't aware of it, we have categories. So if you click on forms up here first, and then where it says options here, you click on the little green arrow or on options, it'll drop these categories down. A lot of people aren't aware of that, so I want to get the word out as much as possible. And then we have a money management category. So if you click that if you check that box, click search, you will see all the forms in that category. And I'm going to show you what that looks like next. Here we go. So this is what would come up. These are money management forms. The report that we're going to talk about first is the annual troop group financial report. And I have another question. Give me a minute. Okay, so what if you're missing 1 or 2 receipts? I will get to that. That's a good question. I will get to that when we go over receipts, so just bear with me on that question. All right, so for now, we're going to go into more detail of the actual report and what they look like. So we're going to open up the annual troop group financial report, which is required for troops or groups. Service units, I believe, have a different one. So here's what it looks like. We try to keep it simple to just one page. Think of this as a summary. It's a report. It's a one-page summary. It's not itemized at all. We'll go over that later. Here is how we fill it out. I wanted to dig a little deeper. So here's a top portion of that report. So just so that we're on the same page, we're going to ask for your covering period. If you're a new troop, then it's going to be from the date that your troop incurred deposits or expenses through the end of the membership year, right? When you turn it in. If you're a returning troop or an existing troop, it'll be from the date that you turned in your last year's financial report to the date that you turned it in this year. I hope that makes sense. We're asked for your troop number, all 5 digits of your troop number. As you know, we're a really big council, so you could have a twin troop somewhere else, and we need all 5 digits to distinguish. Region, if you know your service unit number name here. If you know your region, great. We divide ourselves into East, Central, West, but if you don't, that's okay. Just leave it blank. Service unit is really all that we need, and your troop number. Then we'll ask for your leader name, phone number, email. We ask what levels you have in your troop, the number of girls and number of volunteers at the time that you turn in the report. We will ask for the name of the bank for your troop bank account, your account number, whether you have a debit card or not, the address of the bank, city, state, and zip. So that's what goes on the top. Pretty simple. You see here it's due the fourth Thursday of June, or if leadership changes. What we mean by that is if the troop is changing leaders or disbanding or something like that. So that's the top of the report. The next section of the report has to do with income. So income is basically any money coming into your troop, right? So there's only a few categories for income of the troop. If you are a returning or existing troop, and this is not your first financial report, you will have a beginning balance here. If you're a new troop and this is the first time you're doing this, you will not. Then for income, there's only these 4 categories, really. So registration dues, if you are collecting money from parents for their registration fees, membership fees for their girls, that's what that total would be. Then we have product sale deposits. So how much money came in for fall product deposits, how much money came in for cookie sale deposits. If your troop collects dues, which is not required and optional, but if you do, we have been asking that you track that, and that's so that you can put this total here. Then you have an other category. An other category could include donations or sponsorships that your troop received. So you can see there's only a limited number of sources of income for your troop. Once you have all those listed, you have your total income. Then we go to expenses, which is a little more, a couple more line items. So here are the categories of expenses that we have on our report, and there's some descriptions of them here on the left side. So GSUSA registration dues is how much money you paid to council or through the online system to register or re-register your Girl Scouts. You had parents, you collected it from parents, that was money coming in. Now you are paying it out of the troop account so that you can get their memberships. Take action projects or community service projects, supplies would go here. So let's say, for example, you guys are doing a journey and part of the take action is that you build a garden. That's a community service take action project. you're going to need to buy supplies for that, right? Soil, gloves, seeds, all sorts of stuff. So that's the type of items you would calculate a total for here. Or let's say that your troop is doing a cleanup of a community park. You're going to need to buy trash bags and gloves, that sort of stuff. So that's another example. Then you have product sale expenses. So those are the ACHs that are taken out of your account automatically to pay council. You have a line item for fall product and for cookies. So that's money coming out for those. Then you have a category for program books, which is journey books, um, the Girl's Guide to Girl Scouting binder books. So all of that would be there. Activities, events, camping program, that's a pretty big category. Most troops have a large amount here, which is good and healthy. So that's any expenses related to your field trips, your council events, your service unit events that you sign up for, your camping trips. All of that would go in this category. Insignia is number 6, and insignia is just a fancy word for all of the uniform pieces. So the uniforms, the badges, the patches, the pins. If your troop is expensing some of that out of the troop bank account for your girls, that would be this category. And then we have a troop administration category, which is general administration of the troop, things such as copies, stamps, paperwork, markers, that type of thing. Adult learning is its own category. So if you are having to go to required trainings and pay for that, you can definitely do that with your troop bank account money. And we have a category for that. And then we have an other section. So if you have other expenses that don't fit into any of these categories, you can calculate them here. We would still like to have somewhat of a description of what they are, and we'll get that from the receipts that I'll go over in just a little bit. All right, so I don't see any questions. I'm going to keep going until you guys have some questions or I pause later. So we've done income, we've done expenses. Keep in mind when we talk about expenses that adults should try to avoid paying out of pocket for things. And I know you, some of you may be laughing. It's easier said than done, but we do want to try and avoid that as much as possible. If you do, and of course it's a legitimate expense, we should be reimbursing and documenting that. So if you spent $10 at a store, didn't have the debit card at the time, you spent 10 of your own dollars, keep the receipt, you itemize the receipt, you put a description on the receipt, you turn it into the treasurer of the troop, and the troop can reimburse you those $10. I hope that's not new for anybody. All right, so now that we've completed income expenses, here's an example of it filled out. And then we get to our balance summary. So here you see that our income is $3,120. So looking at the section, I can see that this is a new troop because there is no beginning balance, right? If there was, it would be here. Income, again, is money the troop deposits into the account. Total expenses totaled for this troop $2,008. Expenses is money that is taken out of the troop account. We put those two together in the balance summary, which is our total income minus total expenses gives us our balance of $1,112. So there is a note under this to attach a separate page explaining what plans your troop has for any remaining balance. This is important. What does your troop have planned for this money? Are you doing summer activities, events, camping, celebrations, patches, community service, or take action projects? That's the kind of thing we want to know, that there's a plan for that. Remember, one of the great things about being a Girl Scout troop is that we teach the troops and the girls to be self-sustaining. So a responsible troop does retain enough funds to begin the following year, definitely. However, the goal is never for a troop to accumulate lots of money that just sits there. So if your balance is large for your troop size and the activity that you do, you will be expected to receive approval from your membership manager on this balance carryover, and that's what is noted here in red. I'll let that sink in a little bit while I read some of the questions that we have here. Okay, so I do have a question, which is a really good question. What if your troop has a trip after the due date? And that, of course, is going to happen because we ask for our troop financial reports the fourth Thursday in June. We realize that lots of troops do lots of activities and stay active during the summer. That's what we want. That's great. That's the fun time, right? So we understand that. So what's going to happen is you're going to put what you do in the summer after you turn in your financial report. Those expenses that you incur afterwards are going to be on the following year's year-end financial report. So I hope that makes sense. You will still track it and document it, but on next year's report. All right. If that's not clear, let me know. All right, so I do have another question. If this looks similar to the online one, we can submit in our finances tab, or are we just using the numbers from the form to submit? That's a great question. So that is a question referring to our volunteer toolkit, which is how you can do this online. I will get to that. That's the second part of the presentation. I'm going to go through how to do that online. It's really new for us. And it looks familiar because I cloned the categories. So the categories you see here are the same categories you're going to see on the volunteer toolkit when you do this form online. And I did that so that it would hopefully be more seamless. So you can do it online or you can submit it in paper format. You don't have to do both, but remember you want to keep a record. And when you do it online, you'll be able to print that as well. All right, hope that helps. Let me keep going here. The bottom of this report document we're looking at is asking for signatures. So you may or may not remember, but our policies require that every troop bank account have at least two volunteers as authorized signers. 2 is required. They cannot live in the same house and they cannot be related. 3 authorized signers that are volunteers is always better. Trust me. So an example would be maybe a person that holds a checkbook that would be a troop leader, a volunteer, gone through that process, they would sign. A person that maybe receives the bank statements could be a co-leader. They would sign off on this report. And then maybe there's someone that holds the debit card, debit or credit card. That could be your troop person that does events, right? Because they're expending a lot of those and buying those supplies. And that could be another person that's your authorized signer and could sign off on it. So just as an example, 2 is required, 3 is preferred. All right, so I'm going to pause for questions. You guys have been doing really good asking questions. I appreciate that because that way I know you're out there listening. So I did receive a question. Who do all the documents get turned into? Yes, great question. So I will cover again this later, but it does go to your membership manager. Ultimately, like I mentioned earlier, if you have a service unit that has a treasurer or a manager that is processing them, they will go to them first. But we're a really big council. We have a lot of different areas. Not everybody has a service unit that they're connected to. So in that case, just please turn them into your membership manager. Keep copies for yourself, of course. All right, so unless there's any more questions, I haven't forgotten about the receipt question, so just please bear with me. I will get to that. All right, I'm getting a question. Just bear with me. Okay, so let's keep going. So far, we've gone through the report. If you're not getting much communication from your service unit manager, please don't have, and that could be for different reasons. We're not going to get into that. A lot of people travel for the summer, or aren't as active in the summer with Girl Scouting. So if for some reason that's a concern, please just reach out to your membership manager, or myself as volunteer services. Most of you have my email. Feel free and reach out to me, and we can sort it out. Not a problem at all. You're welcome. All right, so now we're going to go back to the website because we're going to look at the other piece of the reporting, which is the ledger. Again, same thing. You're going to go to the forms section on our website. You're going to click the options category. You're going to check money management, and you're going to click search, or you can type the word ledger in the search bar. Either way, it'll come up for you. And this is what you get. The list of the reports or forms under money management. We were using this one before that we just finished. Now we're going to use the Troop Group Financial Record Ledger. So once we click on this one, it's going to look like this, the ledger. So here's what I want to say first about the ledger. The report we did before, which is what we call the report, was, remember I said it was a summary, an overview. The ledger are the details of every single thing coming into your account and leaving your account for the troop. So these are the details. You can use the council ledger that we have here. It is fillable, but it does not calculate automatically. You do not have to use this ledger. You can use your own. I happen to spend way too much time on Excel. So if you're like me, you can use Excel, do your formulas, calculate it automatically. You can use QuickBooks, whatever works for you, or you can use this ledger. We're not particular about what we receive as long as it's itemized and clear. So I'm going to go over what we expect. If you look closely at the top of the ledger, it's asking you for your county, your service unit, your troop, your group number, all 5 digits, remember, levels of your girls, the membership year, and how many pages your ledger is. Because I only have 2 pages here, the first one and the last one. If you're active, healthy troop doing lots of stuff, it's going to be a lot longer than this. So this honestly is the tedious part, but this is what gives us the whole story of what your troop has been doing and how it spent its money. So I'm going to show you the top part of it first so we can go over it. Okay, here we go. Okay, so here's the top part of that report, or that record ledger, with some examples. Before I get into that, I have a question. There is no need to submit online then. Just wanted to make sure, as I was told we should go online. Okay. So I'm going to go through the online way of submitting your report. The online submission is recommended and encouraged. If your membership manager or service unit manager is requiring it that way, that's what I would strongly recommend that you do. Because it is the first year that we are requiring that, we're trying to be as flexible as possible. A lot of troops have been with us, years and years, and are used to doing it in the paper format, or don't have access to technology as we would like. So we will still accept paper reports, but the online through the volunteer toolkit is preferred and recommended. And like I said, I'll go over that here at the end. All right, I see I have Excel lovers. Yay, yay, yay. Okay, and you're going to turn in your ledger and your receipts and the report and your bank statements. So I'm getting that question. I will review that again here at the end as well. All right, so just to go over this record ledger, you have your county, your service unit, your troop group number, all 5 digits. If it's here, they just put group, you can put your levels as well. The year of the report and how many pages. Then you have here the dates for the transactions, a description, if it's money coming in, if it's money leaving, and a balance. This is a returning troop because you see here that they're starting off with a balance of $100. So the only thing I want to kind of go over with on this because I know it can be a little confusing, is the way it works here to calculate it. So for example, you're going to do $100 to start plus $30 that's coming into your account gives you a total of 130. So you always want to keep this column updated, which is why it's better to keep track of your expenses and your transactions and your deposits at least on a monthly basis, as opposed to waiting until the last minute. If you're really, really busy, it's even better to do it, weekly, because otherwise you'll have to do this one by one. So then we're at a current balance of 130. We expend $30 for early bird registrations. That gives us now a balance of $100. We expensed another 15 for father-daughter registration fees. That now brings our balance down to $85. And then lastly, as the example, we accepted $1,000 for fall product money. So now our current balance for the troop account is $1,085. So you guys see how that works? Just a crisscross. Like I said, if you do an Excel or QuickBooks, then you don't have to worry about this, but I wanted to go over that. Okay, so moving along, this is the bottom part of the report, the ledger. You'll have to have your bank information listed here. You'll need your leader signature, co-leader or troop treasurer, and then some important information that is not new. You've seen that before when you created a troop bank account. So that is your ledger, your itemizations for troop expenses. That's the second part of the year-end reporting. The third part are your bank statements. So of course, these are just examples, but because your troop has a bank statement, you will be getting monthly statements mailed to you, or maybe just electronically. Either way, you're going to need to include them all when you turn in your reporting. When you do your reporting online, which I will get to later, you will be able to upload all of these documents as well. All right, so regardless of what bank you have, we're going to ask for every single month's bank statements. Then the fourth part of the reporting are your receipts, right? So this is the part that can be a little tedious. So we're going to talk about receipts for a little bit. I do have a couple of questions here. Okay, no, we're good. All right, so to talk about receipts, which is a crucial part of this whole process, you will be keeping track of receipts. And when you come to new leader training, I know that I or your trainer will tell you to keep track of your receipts from the very beginning. So here we're going to talk about good receipts and we're going to talk about not so good receipts, just to give you more information. So we'll start with the not so good. Here are some examples. You can see here, there is no store name on this receipt. So I have no idea where this was spent. Some of the receipts are overlapping. It's what some troops do, which is easier, is they will tape receipts to a page, however many will fit, to keep them in an orderly fashion so that they're easier to scan through a scanner as well. So that's what you see here. So, however, in this case, some of the receipts are overlapping, so I can't see the top part of this receipt. Some of the items are cut off, like this one has a total and the store, but I don't know what the purchase was for. This one has no date. So that's a problem as well. We need the dates. Another problem could be that the receipts fade. So if you please, I'm sure we've all learned not to keep our receipts in the car in the heat, they fade. So you're going to want to make sure that you have them, you retain them, they're in good order. A couple of tips. I know some leaders that will take pictures of the receipts and store them that way so that they don't have to worry if they lose them. There are a lot of apps out there that will scan things for you through a picture. You take a picture on this, and this app will scan it for you, and some of them will even categorize it for you. So I haven't played enough with them to recommend any. They are not all free. I need to play with them before I make a recommendation, but the one I'm looking at right now is Easy Scanner. So you take a picture of it, it saves it, and it will even categorize it for you. It's like food items, recreation, so on and so forth. So that may be helpful for you guys if you want to look into that. So here are examples of good receipts. So you can see here, it's nice and orderly. So I can see all the store names. I can see a list of everything that's purchased and the total amount of the purchase. You also want to include a description. So this is great that these are all candy canes, but if you have a note that says Christmas party, that's even better. It makes more sense, right? So here I have a receipt for NMSU special events of $125, but it doesn't tell me what that was. So if you put a note saying these are 12 tickets for a basketball game, then that just adds a lot more to this expense. And here for this receipt, it was for patches mailed to Sharon to Alamogordo, for example. The descriptions go a long way. So that's some examples of good and bad receipts. Here are some tools for tracking that I was going to mention to you guys, but I haven't had a chance to really play with them too much. Let me pause a little bit and see if you have any questions. Okay, no, looks like we're good. All right, so no questions. I'm going to keep going. What we've done so far is gone through all of this. So this is just a review. To turn in your end of year troop financial, you need to include this report, which we went over, plus your ledger, which could be this or one of your choosing, plus all of your receipts, plus all of your bank statements. These 4 items make up your year-end troop financial reporting. I hope that's clear. So what's next? I know somebody asked this earlier. So once you have all of this in order and organized, you will turn it into either your service unit first or your membership manager. So if you have any questions on which one that is for you, like I said, don't hesitate to reach out to me or your membership manager and ask. I have a question. What if your troop didn't sell all cookies? Do we need to add this somewhere? Yes, you're gonna need to add what came in for cookies and what was ACH'd for cookies. That should still be on there. Okay, so no questions. The last part of the presentation is the volunteer toolkit. So as you guys already started asking me, which I'm very excited that you did, we have a volunteer toolkit. Our council has been using this for the first year. This is our first year using it. It's a very robust tool that works on your phone, on your tablet. It's great. It does a lot of things. The only thing I'm going to talk about tonight is how you can do your financials on the volunteer toolkit. So I have screenshots of everything. Remember that even though you're turning it in, if you can, which we recommend that you do it through the volunteer toolkit, you are still required to keep records for 3 years, and I'll show you how you can print that out through the volunteer toolkit when you are done. All right. So here's how you do it. You go to our website again, which is www.gsdsw.org. You're going to go to where it says My GS here. Then you have 2 options, Volunteer Toolkit or Member Profile. You're going to click Volunteer Toolkit. Once you do that, you're going to have some tabs at the top. You go to the Finances tab. This is one of the newer things that was added. So once you click on the Finances tab, you'll be able to access what you're going to be filling out. So, for example, pay attention to this note here. It automatically updates or saves all of your information. It does not submit it to council. So you have the option of editing, editing, editing. It'll save it automatically, but you won't submit it until you're ready to submit it, and you'll know when that is, because there'll be some big buttons that you'll have to press, and I'll go through that. So this is an example. This is not what ours look like. This is a different council or an example. But there's an income section, just like we discussed for our report. There's an income section. You would fill out these sections here. If you need more description, so what do they mean by monthly troop dues? You can click on where it says council detail, and it'll give you more of a description. You also have the option to add a note at the end of the income section here. So if you had, for example, a negative balance of 100, 200, whatever that is, you're going to want to include a note letting us know what happened. Why is that negative? If you have a large amount of income, you might want to include a note also. So that's at your discretion to use. You also will have a link here at the top for forms that we have added for our council. So if you go to our volunteer toolkit, it'll say on here helpful forms, and that's where you can find the same forms that you can find on our website. It's just another way of accessing them through this hyperlink. All right, so moving along, we're still in the income section. Here's an example of $48 of monthly troop dues. And then, of course, like I mentioned, you can add the note here, and you see a timestamp. Every time the system automatically saves your data, you'll get a timestamp of the last time that it did that. So that's there. All right, and we're still in income. This is an example of a note that you could put in at the end. And if you change your mind and don't want it anymore, you can delete it. It'll tell you at the bottom how many characters you have remaining, because there is a limit for it. This is all in Volunteer Toolkit. So now we're in the expenses section here. So you're going to want to enter the troops' annual expenses in the categories. Now these categories are different. The ones that you see for our Volunteer Toolkit are going to be the same categories that we already talked about with the report. You're going to enter the amounts, no special characters, just the numbers. If you need more detail, you click on the green council detail. It automatically totals it up for you. And again, you have an option to include a note if you need to explain something. Here's an example of the note. All right, so once you've done your income and your expenses, it'll take you to a financial summary. When we discussed it earlier on the report, we called it a balance summary, same concept. If you're a returning troop, you're going to put your starting balance. Your starting balance should be the amount that you put that was at the end of your financial report last year. If you're a new troop, then that will be 0. It'll automatically have your income and your expenses calculated based on the previous entries that you made. This gives you your ending balance, and again, you have an option to include a note. One of the great things about Volunteer Toolkit is that it helps you with transparency with your troop parents. So information that is in this summary, parents will be able to see. They will not be able to see any notes that you make for council, any of your bank information, or other details that you provide to the council, like your attachments, your receipts, that sort of stuff. But this, they will have access to seeing, which is great. It helps with transparency. All right, so once you do all that, you're going to get ready to submit it. It's going to ask you for your bank information, the name of your bank, your branch name. If you don't know the branch name, the location would work okay. The last 4 account numbers. It'll remind you here when your true report is due. For our council, it's June 28th, 2018. You also will input the names of the authorized signers on the checking account. You can add signers, and then if you change your mind or made a mistake, you can also remove them. All right, as you remove them by clicking that. So this is what it would look like. You're going to put checkings. We don't have savings. And then you're going to also have an option for council notes and questions to troops. So this is towards the end of the report that you do online. It's going to ask you what the status of your troop is for the next membership year. Are you returning? Are you merging with another troop? Are you disbanding? Or are you not sure? You'll have a couple of other questions that we as a council have specifically chosen to ask you, like what was your overall experience as a volunteer? It's not too many, it's about 3, maybe 4. So we wanted to take advantage of you doing this online to get a little bit more information from you at the end of your membership year or when you're doing your financial report. All right, so once you complete these questions, it's going to, this is another example of a question. These are more council notes. So these are some questions as examples that another council may ask. Once you complete all of that, whatever questions we are asking, then you'll have an option to preview the report before you submit it to council. Now, I cannot stress enough to you all that once you submit the report online, there's nothing you can do to change it. It's final. It is final for you. It's final for us. We will receive it, but there's nothing you can do to edit it at that point. You could call us, and then we would have to physically, manually make a change. But on your end, there is nothing that can be done. So once you submit the report, it is final, which is why you have the option to preview it before, which I really recommend that you do. Everything is time-stamped of when it's saved for your records. So once you preview it, you can choose to send it or you can edit it by clicking the Edit Report button. All right, if you preview it, we're in preview mode right now. It's going to show you everything you have for income and any notes that you made, everything you had for expenses and any notes that you made, everything for your financial summary and any notes from council, from the troop. We're in preview mode. Your bank information that you submitted and the questions that you answered that we had for you. So all of that will be there for you to preview. Once you've previewed it, you can edit it, or if you can get to this screen and you can send to council. Once you click this button, you cannot make any more changes. So you got to be really sure about it. And of course, keep copies for yourself. So once you're ready to send, you click send to council. You will have the option at that point to add any documents to it. So you can upload up to 25 megabytes of information. This is what you're going to do to upload your bank statements and your receipts and your ledger. So all those 3 things need to be uploaded. So you would click this button. Once you click that button, you'll browse for the documents that you want to upload. You click it. You'll see a list of the documents that are going to be uploaded. And then you have the option, no, I'm not ready or don't want to submit, or yes, I want to submit now. Once you submit it to council, it'll give you this confirmation of how many documents were attached and the date. You'll get another confirmation with the date and the time. At the very bottom of the page, you'll see a message also that if you need to make any changes, you need to contact us directly. And I forgot to mention also, when you get to this screen, you'll have here, you don't see it here, but you'll have an option to download the report and print it. So that's what you want to do. before you sent it off, or after you send it off, you'll be able to do that. You want to keep records for yourself. So, and that's pretty much how it works in the volunteer toolkit. I hope I was trying to do that a little quicker, because you can go into the volunteer toolkit and look into it and play with it. If for some reason you don't have access to volunteer toolkit, or you don't have access to the finance tab, please give me a call, contact me. I'm the volunteer toolkit administrator, so I should be able to go behind the scenes and help you out with that. So, but feel free to definitely look at it, and you are strongly encouraged to submit your report through the volunteer toolkit. If you're not comfortable with that, or you were told otherwise, then you can, of course, turn it in paper format, which is why we still have all the forms out there. But as we get more comfortable and with this technology, we will be requiring troops to fill it out that way in the future. So I hope that helps. I'm going to go ahead and go through some questions before we wrap it up. I have not forgotten about the question I received about receipts. So the question was, what happens if I lost some receipts? So here's what I usually go through in new leader training. The money that's in the account, it belongs to the troop. So if for some reason we are not able to document certain expenses, that money needs to be reimbursed to the troop, because that's the money that they earned. You can, before that, what I have done, because as a council staff person, I have a credit card for council, and I have lost receipts in the past. And before I reimbursed council with my personal money, I have contacted stores directly to get copies of receipts. I have contacted the credit card company directly, and sometimes they are able to send me a copy. Sometimes I've called the vendor themselves, and they've been able to give me a copy. Now, it's not always easy, and it's not always right away, but that has worked for me. If I am unable to get a copy of the receipt, then I am responsible for reimbursing that money to council. So troop leadership is responsible for reimbursing that money to the troop as well. So you want to be really, really careful to keep track of your receipts right from the beginning. And I hope that answers your question. If it's something extreme or that didn't suffice, don't hesitate to contact your membership manager for help on that. Okay, so I don't see any other questions. That wraps up the training on how to do your end of year report for your troop or your group. I hope it helped a little bit. It's a very general training. I tried to go in some detail of the actual forms. I know that you may have some specific questions based on scenarios, and if that's the case, feel free and ask through email or your membership manager. But this should give you enough to get started. If you start doing it and have more questions, reach out to us. So unless you all have anything else or questions, I will go ahead and end the webinar. Thank you so much for attending tonight. I will stay on until you guys leave. I am getting a couple of questions. So can I turn in copies of receipts to council and I keep the originals, or do I need to give them the originals? It's best, it really depends on how legible they are. If they're both equally legible, it should not make a difference. We usually do prefer the originals because of that, though. All right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. I hope it helped. Have a good night. Yes, I have one more. Yes, so this presentation is going to be recorded, or it has been recorded, and it will be available on our YouTube account as a webinar. Definitely. Great question. So the easiest way to get to our YouTube account is to go to our website. And at the very bottom of the website, you're going to see some icons. You're going to see an icon for Facebook, for Twitter, for Instagram, and then you'll see an icon for YouTube. That'll take you straight to our YouTube account. Or you could just open YouTube and enter Girl Scouts of the Desert Southwest, and that'll come up for you then. Because you attended this webinar, I think you also will get an email tomorrow thanking you and giving you access to the link directly. If not, you know how to get a hold of me. Thank you. Have a good night.